1. The ultimate meanings of suffering, emptiness, and impermanence. A large number of Buddhists portray life as an experience of extreme suffering, and further divide it into suffering caused by birth and death, the 3 sufferings, 4 sufferings, 8 sufferings, and endless sufferings. The truth is, Buddha never taught about suffering to worsen our aversion to life and reality, treating the Saha world as the sea of suffering, regarding the 3 realms as a burning house, feeling that life is meaningless. Rather, his intention was to draw our focus onto suffering itself, and cultivate virtue to eradicate the causes of suffering and attain ultimate peace. This is not how suffering should be perceived. Proactively, suffering can be regarded as a contributive factor to life. Suffering is a contributing condition, and a nutrient for life. Suffering causes one to learn, work harder, improve, grow, and transcend. Suffering enables those with potential to endure hardship and strive harder, which are positive energies in life. In terms of liberation from suffering and attainment of happiness, no student can pass exams without years of studious effort. No farmer will ever yield a good harvest without diligent cultivation. No soldier can emerge gloriously as a general without fighting hard battles. No engineers can become experts without years of research works. Without hard work, how can there be success? Without proper upbringing and education, how can parents raise their children well? Without caring and providing for one's parents, how can these children live an ethical life once they become adults? Without being subject to the harsh cold and bone-chilling storm, how can there be pleasant floral fragrances in spring? Without experiencing a long period of hibernation, how can animals exhibit the vibrant energies of life? Suffering is our teacher, our strength, our factor of success, and what makes us admirable. Suffering is like clay, which, having gone through the furnace, becomes solid and strong. Suffering is like asphalt, which, once pressed hard into the ground, becomes a firm path for travelers. Suffering is like gold, which must be subject to extreme temperature to become refined and pure. Suffering trains us and makes us stronger, more determined, and more aspiring. Suffering is a path upon which we head towards a greater future. As the saying goes, one becomes the best of the best by enduring the worst of the worst. Eminent Buddhist masters of the past all endured the greatest hardships in order to achieve spiritual attainment. Even the Buddha had to go through 6 years of austerity in order to become awakened. The path is certainly not an easy one. 1. Suffering. Life, after endless hammering and refinement, becomes full of potential. After endless hammering and refinement, it is ready to depart the deep mountains. Having gone through the furnace of raging fire, it is no longer linked to the ordinary. Though its body is shattered and bones crushed, it harbors no resentment. All that is left behind in this world are the white colors of purity. In this poem by Yukin from the Ming Dynasty, it tells us that without excavation, high temperature, extreme refinement and chiseling, Lam cannot become the pure white substance that beautifies the houses that people live in. Suffering is indeed an inevitable truth of life. In Buddhism, there are the so-called 8 sufferings. Suffering caused by birth, old age, sickness, death, union with foes, separation from loved ones, unfulfilled desire, and burning of the 5 skandhas. Parents go through extreme hardship to give birth to and raise their children, the pain of which is certainly hard to imagine. When old age arises, the situation is worsened by loneliness, which is also suffering. Once sickness strikes, the torments of mental illnesses such as greed, anger, and ignorance, added with the physical pains, are indubitably oppressing. In addition, the fear of death certainly worsens life's reputation as one that is filled with nothing but suffering. There are also the sufferings caused by loss of loved ones, meeting one's foes, and insatiable desires. These pains are certainly difficult to endure. Even everyday encounters can cause emotions of discomfort, fatigue, and hardship, which are also categorized as suffering in this world. However, it is not entirely impossible to overcome such adversities and calamities in life. For example, despite the painstaking effort of having to raise one's children, when they hold their babies in their arms, the pain then transforms into the joy of hope. There are also dutiful children who offer constant care and love, which assuredly brings warmth to the hearts of the parents. Old age may be suffering. However, there are also elderlies who enjoy a retired life in the company of their children and grandchildren. It is not a joy to care for one's spouse in old age and be in the company of one's offspring. When the elderly are respected, attended to, and provided for, old age certainly has its joys and splendor. Even when retired and alone, one still has a chance to start a second life and continue to expand life's horizons. Can you say that old age is truly nothing but suffering? When we are sick, we can go to the hospital and find doctors of distinctive specialties to treat our illnesses. Concurrently, you must know your body well and give it sufficient nutrients, health care, and exercise in order to help it heal. Even bedridden patients are afforded various conditions and care. Therefore, sickness cannot be entirely regarded as suffering. Many are ultimately given the luxury of time when sick, and learn from the lesson of sickness. Some are able to retreat to quiet places to rest and enjoy natural surroundings by wandering in the wilderness, appreciating the flowers, all alongside the mountains and rivers. After the mind and body acquire deep relaxation and recuperation, they are able to start anew. In this way, illness has become a good cause. As the saying goes, the gift of food comes with a little price. It is not entirely cruel to come across sickness, for it can make us stronger. Buddhist masters take minor illnesses as companions for the way, for they inspire us to improve and transcend life. In the sutras, suffering is categorized into 1. Physical illness, old age, sickness, death, and rebirth. 2. Mental illness, greed, anger, and ignorance. With the guidance of Dharma, you shall be able to train yourself in becoming mentally and physically free of suffering. To those who lead a hectic life, the gains of minor illnesses is a few days of rest. Sometimes, through the occurrence of a minor illness, people would come to understand the inspiration it offers. Illness is a reminder for us all that the world is not perfect, and no one can live forever. Illness shows the reality of life in helping us to become detached from it. Illness is feared even by heroes. Only upon sickness does one come to realize that the body is a source of suffering. By embracing the suffering of illness, we will no longer become attached to it. It is usually upon the moment of sickness that people come to realize the need to let go of the delusive joys of wealth and fame, and embark on the journey to finding life's true meanings. It is not a total loss if with illness come unique realizations. Speaking of death, most people think the greatest suffering comes from death. Actually, not only can death be painless, it can even bring a sense of joy. Why so? An aging and dying body is compared to a dilapidated house that requires reconstruction in order for someone to live in it again. Death is similar to a run-down engine that needs to be replaced in order to get the machine up and running again. Death is also like a garden that needs to be trimmed and weeded, otherwise there is no hope of future blossoms. It is true ignorance to think that there is no hope or future beyond death. Just as the cycle of seasons continues to revolve, once winter is over, one needs not be afraid that a spring full of blossoms will never come. Death does not mean the end. Death is merely the sweet fruition of life. Once harvested, new seeds will grow and ripen for the next harvest. Once the cycle of old age, sickness, and death is complete, although the physical body dies, our true thusness Buddha nature lives on as the eternal life. Just as one log burns out after the other, what endures from the logs is the flame. From one stage to another, the flame of life continues to burn without end. Consider chanting beads as another example. Each bead represents a single lifetime that is connected together by the thread of karma. From previous lifetimes to succeeding lifetimes, life continues in a cycle without end. It does not disappear when death occurs. It is only the disrememberment in between lifetimes that cause one to feel separated by different bodies. When one migrates into a new body, it then symbolizes a new lifetime. Like a wall that places you on one side and I on the other, nothing beyond the present lifetime is remembered. What remains is one's wholesome and unwholesome karmas that keep us in the river of causes and conditions, floating on and on. Death can be likened to migration to other places. Wealthy people have the capital to migrate to better places, while poor people are only able to reach the less affluent places. The same goes for rebirth. The forces of our good and bad karma guide us in great accuracy and fairness. Thus birth, old age, sickness and death are particularly natural processes, so there is no need to worry. At one time, Buddhists explained the process of life by order of birth, old age, sickness, and death, placing death as a final destination, which is rather passive. Imagine if the order were rearranged into old age, sickness, death, and rebirth. Though the contents remained the same, the new order adds a sense of proactiveness to life. Since birth symbolizes a future, where there is a future, there is hope. Just as winter is followed by spring, what can be bad about this? Since the flame of life continues to burn, all we need is to do good to create good causes and good conditions. Therefore there is no need to be so passive and negative about life. We believe that Buddha had intended for us to understand the natural process of life, birth, old age, sickness and death, and aspire for virtue and enlightenment, a broadened life, and an enriching future. Therefore, it is essential that we establish good affinities, and endeavor to do good so as to lead to a wealthy and joyful future life. Followers of the Buddhist faith will understand that life is filled with half and half. If the Buddhist practices were well followed, we will then be offered numerous solutions to our sorrows and sufferings. For example, the suffering caused by greed can be resolved by the contemplation of impurity. The suffering caused by anger can be remedied by compassion. Understanding causes and conditions can alleviate the suffering caused by ignorance. In addition, lethargy can be relieved by diligence, and arrogance by respect. Henceforth, the remaining 4 of the 8 suffering caused by union with foes, separation from loved ones, unfulfilled desire, and burning of the 5 skandhas, as well as infinite types of suffering are not totally unsurpassable. Faith offers us so many wholesome solutions to life's problems and afflictions, and allows us to continuously grow and improve. How then can we not see the beauty of life? Our fear of suffering is exactly what makes us vulnerable to it. Freedom from that fear will release us from the worries of hardship and suffering, which will enable us to confront life's challenges, overcome all adversities, and succeed in our endeavors. In the past, the key tenet within Chinese culture was the willingness to endure suffering, aggrievement, and hardships so as to attain greater strength to grow as a human being with a hopeful future. We can also see that those who fear hardship, who are lazy and passive, are the ones who never succeed. Only those who are willing to confront adversity, overcome challenges, and strive hard will succeed. Hence, Buddha taught us suffering for the purpose of encouraging us to head for the Buddha path, to tread the untreadable, and endure the unendurable. To have no fear in suffering and adversity is what the Buddha wished to teach us. In general, the statement, "life is suffering," is not wrong. Suffering connotes proactiveness and growth, and does not need to be interpreted as something passive and unendurable. As Buddhists, it is important for us to see austerity as a bridge that links us to spiritual cultivation and enlightenment. Nonetheless, austerity does not necessarily have to be the only path to success and accomplishment. Thus we must understand suffering from a new perspective, that it is a contributing factor of growth, not our enemy. The spiritual attainment to regard suffering as joy, suffering as a blessing, and suffering as peace, allows us to enjoy life to the fullest. 2. Emptiness. What is empty in this world thereby exists in this world. The greatest misunderstanding of Buddhism is the fear of emptiness. Early translations of the Buddha's teachings on dependent origination rendered it as the word sunya, which was quite precise. However, sunya was also interpreted as nothingness and emptiness, thereby provoking even greater misconceptions of the Buddhist teaching on emptiness of the four elements as things being nothing and empty. If anyone were asked to believe in Buddhism, they would feel as if they believe in a somewhat elusive life and empty world. When this misunderstanding worsens, in-depth understanding of the Dharma is thus hindered, which is a genuine pity. The truth is, emptiness is not to be feared. Instead, it should be something we pursue. Imagine if there were no empty lands, where would I build my house? If there were no empty fields, where would I plant my crops? Without crops, how can there be a harvest? If my pockets weren't empty, where would I put my money? If my bowl were not empty, where would I place the rice and vegetables? Emptiness allows us to have and to hold something, which is said in the phrase, "Out of true emptiness arises wondrous existence." Although Buddhism speaks of emptiness, it in fact gives rise to existence, helps us build our future, and enables us to succeed in life. For example, the often misunderstood connotation of emptiness of the four elements in fact means that everything in this world is comprised of the four elements: earth, water, wind, and fire. Since everything is a conglomerate of the four elements, everything is thus empty in nature. If the four elements disintegrate or cease to be empty, then nothing can create it or exist. For instance, this universe is made up of the four elements. Without earth, where can life grow? Without earth, where can things be stored? Without the earth, where can we stand and live? Water is also as vital. Without water you would be dry and thirsty. Without water to cleanse you, you will be dirty. Without the nourishment and purification of water, do you think we would ever live happily? Fire helps us cook food and keep warm. Is not the warmth of the sun truly wonderful? Imagine if there were no sunlight, no electricity, no fire, no warmth, or cooked food, would humans be able to survive? The gentle breeze brings refreshing air to us. Wind is air that flows, and the air that we breathe. Imagine if there were neither wind nor air, how can beings survive? Therefore, the four elements earth, water, wind, and fire actually enable us to survive. It can even be said that the four elements represent existence, as emptiness and existence are one and the same. Without an empty pocket, you would have no space to carry your money. Without empty space in your organs, mouth, and nostrils, do you think you would be able to survive? Empty lands and empty space are indeed very precious. Even 1 square foot of open land can be worth millions of dollars. How can you say that emptiness is not good? Without empty space or land, where can houses be built? People fight over empty space. They would take each other to court for a single empty space. Emptiness is the most ideal foundation of existence. Emptiness offers us the most bountiful riches. Therefore, there is no need to fear emptiness, because it gives us a chance to survive and prosper. For this reason, I have written the couplet. The empty nature of the four elements manifests in existence. The incorporation of the five aggregates are ultimately unreal existence. In being empty, the four elements are in fact not empty. We all wish for our space to be as big as possible, because the greater the space, the greater the matters we are able to contain therein. Those with big hearts embrace big things, and are more likely to succeed. Thus it must be understood that emptiness gives rise to existence, and existence depends on emptiness in order to be. The five skandhas form, perception, volition, mental formation, and consciousness, refer to our body and mind. The four elements earth, water, fire, and wind symbolize our skin, flesh, bone, marrow, internal organs, tears, saliva, urine, body temperature, and breath. In Buddhism, these physical and astounding realities are generally referred to as form, while perception, volition, and mental formation are mental activities. Consciousness is the owner of this self, which directs our eyes, ears, nose, tongue and body. In addition, consciousness enables us to distinguish right from wrong, and even eliminate wrong by doing good. Perceptively, it can be said that form is emptiness, and emptiness is form. The two are one and the same. This interpretation of life's truth will inspire in us wisdom, and provide us insight to the ultimate meaning of life. Having understood that form is emptiness, and emptiness is form, one has understood the truth, and will naturally be replete with the joy of Dharma and Chen. What reason is there for you to deny the wondrous meaning of emptiness? If you do, why would you desire more space? The truths imparted by the Buddha in the Treatise on the Perfection of Great Wisdom, Sutra on the Perfection of Great Wisdom, Diamond Sutra, and the Heart Sutra can be abridged into the following. The non-duality of emptiness and existence. Since emptiness gives rise to the myriad phenomena, existence, and matters, the phrase form is emptiness, and emptiness is form thus becomes such a wonderful truth. However, it is difficult for the world to understand this wondrous Dharma, and the word sa is even misunderstood as a tangible color or sensual pleasure. It is a real pity to see the profound wisdom of past great thinkers distorted in such a manner. Emptiness embodies the meaning of causes and conditions, namely, the truth about everything in the universe. Frequently, we discriminate between the conventional manifestations of all matters instead of probing into the truth within them. As a result, we fail to understand the meaning of emptiness. Take a table for example. The moment you call it a table, its conventional form traps you, because in fact it is timber. However, if you then call it timber, it is still conventional, because timber is obtained from trees, whose essence is actually a seed. Yet the moment you come to understand that the true form of a tree is a seed, you must also realize that this seed has gathered the conditions of soil, water, sunlight, air, and human labor in order to grow into a tree that is cut into pieces of timber, which are then made into a table. For this reason, the Buddhist teachings often speak about an entire universe visible within a grain of sand. From a piece of timber, I am able to see the energy of the entire universe that brought it into existence. This is the meaning of causes and conditions. This whole connection explained in Buddhism can be expressed with one word, emptiness. Consequently, it can be said that emptiness is a foundation of all forms of existence, for it embodies the criteria of existence for all matters. Emptiness allows us to survive, and emptiness allows us to become prosperous. Thus emptiness should be praised, instead of misunderstood, as something that is bad to us when it is actually beneficial. Why would you reject the treasure of emptiness? The most unique part of Buddhism is that, unlike other religions that define the process of existence in a linear perspective with a single starting point and a single ending point, Buddhism explains the cosmology in an infinite and cyclical manner. Time is defined as beginningless and endless, while space is described as without, inside, or outside. Such an extremely wondrous and vigorous life brings so much hope and future to the human world. Why would anyone reject this teaching and taint the truth? Just as the seasonal cycle progresses from spring to summer, autumn and winter, what follows is not the end but the advent of spring yet again. When myriad phenomena go through the cycle of becoming, existing, deteriorating, and emptiness, emptiness does not mean nothingness but the availability of space that allows a building to be rebuilt. When the circle of life goes from old age, sickness, death and rebirth, death does not result in nothing. Like the arms of a clock, it merely means that the number 12 has been crossed and will start anew. Since the law of causes and conditions operates in a cyclical manner, then emptiness or the great void would be infinite and boundless. Such are the meanings of emptiness and conditions. Since it is not easy to understand the concept of emptiness, reflected within the law of causes and conditions, even the Buddha went through painstaking efforts to realize this. Its full meaning cannot be described by words. For this reason, empty space has thus become a pragmatic method to teach the doctrine of emptiness. It is often said that the more energy you possess, the greater the space you own. Modern-day people define their wealth by the spacious mansions and lands that they own, yet they never realize that a carefree mind sleeps on a spacious bed, while a troubled mind turns the three realms into the smallest spaces. Outwardly, one may look as if he owns nothing, yet is the riches of the entire great chiliocosm. On the contrary, one with a narrow mind may look to enjoy a wealthy material life, but in reality he is nothing but a slave to his riches, always fearing loss of wealth. His life thus becomes meaningless. Such a person is ridiculed as the poorly wealthy. Furthermore, poverty is emptiness too, though one still lives in a confined space. From this the proactive significance of emptiness can be understood. Emptiness gives rise to myriad matters. Emptiness is also a conscious river that enables us to cruise through the vast emptiness. Is this not a beautiful life? If the positive attitude of emptiness can be understood, then it shall no longer be misunderstood. The meaning of emptiness, as explained by experts in Buddhist studies, may involve causes and conditions as supporting factors of all forms of existence. It also embodies the relationship between phenomena, which abiding by principle then comes into being. Emptiness is the foundation of existence. Form arises from the presence of conditions. Conditions comprise emptiness. The myriad matters are the same as emptiness. Without emptiness, how can there be room for any form of existence? As we are currently addressing humanistic Buddhism, we should mention the contributions which emptiness, as taught by the Buddha, can offer to us. That is, emptiness constructs existence for us. The greater our space, the wealthier we become. It is truly perplexing to see emptiness explained otherwise, deeming it as nothingness instead. Would this not create greater misunderstanding in the Buddha and his Dharma? Even more so, this not only does injustice to Buddhism, it is an even greater loss to all living beings, because they would be obstructed from properly understanding the truth. Worse, they may even be lost in the delusive thoughts of being correct, guiding the blind with their own blindness. This certainly causes many worries. 3. Impermanence. Everything can change. In the past, Buddhism was much feared for the constant mentioning of an impermanent world and a life that is short and full of suffering. In fact, impermanence makes life even more wondrous and infinite, because impermanence means that I have a chance for change. Be it our daily life surroundings or future dreams, impermanence means change and improvement are possible. On a different level, impermanence can be said to embody a positive and aspiring attitude towards life. For example, impermanence means that poverty could be transformed into wealth through diligence. There are many real-life stories about young students who have pursued their dreams of wealth and glory by studious efforts. We also see many aspiring youths who were promoted for their hard work and eventually became entrepreneurs or tycoons. The world is impermanent. Swallows that have departed will return again. Wilted flowers will one day bloom again. Cold winter days will not last forever, for they will only remain temporarily. What follow would be the warm springs and refreshing summers that offer the luxury of full blossoms and summer creeks. If this place is too cold, I can move to a warmer place. When a place is too hot, I can find a cooler summer abode. All of these are possible because impermanence makes anything changeable. To be able to benefit so much from the ever-changing impermanent world, how can we not be content? This world is filled with the continuous conditions of arising and extinction. Just as flowers bloom and wilt, the sun rises and sets, the moon becomes full and crescents, the four seasons bring about warmth and cold, and the ever-rotating cycle of day and night. These are all the beauty of impermanence. Impermanence makes Mother Nature so much more wonderful and diverse. Impermanence also inspires us to strive hard. Therefore, there is no need to fear impermanence. Instead, we should be grateful of the wonderful prospects in life and the endless potentials to achieve greater success brought about by impermanence. When perceived negatively, impermanence will bear a negative effect. However, impermanence can also help us improve. For example, being poor, if I work hard and broadly establish good affinities, then I would have a chance to succeed. Though being rich, without cherishing my blessings, even a gold mine will run out over time. I may not be smart, but if I study diligently, there is still a possibility of becoming intelligent as a result of my hard work. Imagine if poverty and dullness are set for life, there would be no purpose in life. A life filled with impermanence and ever-changing rules means that as long as we are willing to correct ourselves, refine our behavior, and strive hard, then we can naturally turn our future and fate around. Thus impermanence teaches us to cherish our blessings, our conditions, and our relationships. We should be grateful to impermanence for reminding us of the need to strive hard and work diligently. Otherwise what we have may soon disappear. Impermanence reminds us of the need to cherish time. Impermanence reminds us of the need to protect our perishing environment. The beauty of spring blossoms and the autumn moon make this world so much more beautiful. Even if we are subject to the process of old age, sickness, death, and rebirth, we still have a chance to reinvent ourselves. Having shared such wondrous truth of this world, which the Buddha had awakened to, if we were able to believe, accept, and practice it, the resulting benefits would be worth more than the greatest wealth in this world. 4. Selflessness, from the smaller self to the greater self. In the past, the notion of selflessness created fear in people, causing them to feel that once the self disappears, life will no longer bear meaning. The truth is, this conventional body of ours is not worth coveting. The Buddhist doctrine of selflessness is not to make us deny ourselves but to teach us not to stick to that smaller and ignorant self. Instead, we should bring out that true self who makes us bigger, pure, greater, and more elevated. The Buddhist terms of true thusness, intrinsic nature, Tathagatagarbha, true form, prajna wisdom, and Dharma body all serve the purpose of helping this world build a hopeful future and strive for success. Therefore, why would anyone define selflessness as a form of annihilation? The so-called Dharma body is omnipresent within the vast emptiness, and all-pervading within the Dharma realm. Life exists everywhere, and the vast emptiness exists within our minds. The self can be infinite and boundless. The self is eternity. the self goes through the cycle of old age, sickness, death, and rebirth with a predetermined lifespan and body. However, this is the same as changing from a ragged piece of clothing into a new one. When this body deteriorates, we then change into a new one. When the sun sets, it will rise again the next morning. While sunrise has its glories, sunset is also filled with endless beauty. Are birth and death not just the same? The story about two ghosts fighting over a body in chapter 12 of the commentary on the perfection of great wisdom is worth mentioning. Once, a traveler missed his final chance to launch before dusk fell, therefore he had no choice but to stay at a small abandoned temple. He cleared out a space beneath the altar table and decided to rest before resuming his journey the next day. In the middle of the night, a small ghost suddenly entered the temple. "Oh no! Am I in trouble now?" thought the traveler. As he panicked, a taller ghost followed and yelled at the small ghost, "What do you think you are doing with my body?" "What do you mean your body?" "It's mine," replied the small ghost. "No, it's mine," said the tall ghost. The two began to fight fiercely over the body, causing the traveler to shake in fear. "Hey, there is a man here. Come out and bear witness. Tell us who came in with this body." Unsure of the consequences of telling the truth that it belonged to the small ghost, the man nevertheless decided not to lie. "I saw the small ghost come in with the body." This made the tall ghost very angry that it ripped off the man's right arm and ate it. Not wanting to see the man who took its side suffer, the smaller ghost then ripped off the dead body's right arm and attached it to the man's body, causing the tall ghost to become even more angry. It then ripped off the man's left arm and ate it. Again the smaller ghost replaced it with the dead body's arm. It went on like this. Whichever part the man's body was ripped off and eaten, the smaller ghost would replace it with that of the dead body. In modern terms, this could be considered the same as organ transplant. After they had all the fun, the two ghosts ran off and disappeared into the distance, leaving the man in a serious dilemma. Who am I? I used to be John from Broadway, New York, but his body has been eaten away by the ghost, so to whom does this body belong? A sudden realization came to him. The body was never really his, it was just conventional existence. What remained uneaten and irreplaceable was his true nature. Thus his true self had finally been discovered. Who am I? This is a question worth pondering over for everyone. Is I the conventional four elements? Is life measured by years? If so, then it would be a true pity to see life through such a narrow view. Humans are eternal beings of the past and future, the ever-changing and prevailing beings across infinity. Humans are beings who pervade all directions and penetrate all three lifetimes. Human beings are made great from birth, which is why we endure the painstaking experiences of faith and pursuit of Buddhahood. Beyond the physical body is an eternal spiritual life that never dies. For this, life becomes extremely meaningful and full of hope. For this reason, the I within the question of who am I is not that physical body, but a true self that must be understood and attained. Once we enter that state of eternal and undying self, we shall no longer fear or have delusive thoughts. Thus it can be seen that the consequence of comprehending Buddha's early teachings of suffering, emptiness, impermanence, and selflessness with a passive mind would be unimaginable. On the other hand, when regarded with a positive mind, the teachings then become very wonderful. Holding true to the original intent of Buddha, Humanistic Buddhism's interpretation of the Dharma offers hope to this world, and never provokes fear. By nature, every Dharma is meant to help and benefit us. Buddha's teachings on life and the universe were later proven by scientists to be true. Much of what Buddha awakened to still remains a mystery to even the most prominent scientists today. For example, Buddha's awakened insight enabled him to realize that the earth bears the same shape as that of an amala fruit. Indeed, the earth was later proven to be round. Some 16 centuries after the Buddha's declaration, Polish scientist Nicolaus Copernicus also proposed that the earth was round, which was later supported by Italian astronomer Galileo Galilei who, as a result, was tried by the Roman Inquisition for heresy. Almost a century later, English physicist Isaac Newton supplemented this theory by his laws of motion and universal gravitation. Based on the fact that Buddha's insights were slowly understood by the world through scientific proofs, it can be said that for any mundane knowledge to catch up to the level of Buddha's attainment, it would take an extremely long time. Another of Buddha's insight from thousands of years ago was that he could already see within a glass of water the existence of 84,000 organisms. Thousands of years later, scientists were finally able to prove Buddha's claim through the use of microscopes. In Chapter 65 of the Sutra of the Right Mindfulness of Dharma, Sadharma Smrti Upasthana Sutra, T17NO.721, Buddha explains that there are about 80 types of organisms that live on the human body. Modern-day science has come to explain this with the term microbes. In addition, when Buddha referred to the universe as the 3,000 great chiliocosms, he perceived the world as the greatest, boundless, and subtlest without any limits. According to the findings of modern-day scientists, the Earth, which we live on, covers an area of approximately 130 millionth of the entire solar system. Yet there exist 200 billion suns within the entire galaxy, on top of which, millions of galaxies exist within the whole universe. The boundlessness of the universe is therefore exactly what the Buddha had said. Speaking from the perspective of the smallest particles, modern-day physicists have broken matters down to the smallest units of atoms, electrons, neutrons, and even smaller units. Yet by microdust, Buddha meant something even smaller than protons. This is similar to placing an animal hair underneath a microscope. You will be able to see even smaller particles within the hair. Taking those particles into even smaller matters a million times, we might come closer to what Buddha meant by microdust. Scientists have even discovered that 99.999999% of an atom is empty. What we perceive are in reality not as they really are. Instead, we are only perceiving matters from our own perspectives, under the control of our consciousness. True reality is like a sea of energy that is boundless and filled with infinite waves of change. Everything is a part of the whole unity, which holds us together by interconnectedness. Therefore, all of the above fit within with the Buddhist concepts such as the three realms are nothing but a creation of the mind, and all phenomena manifestations of the consciousness. True emptiness gives rise to wondrous existence, and oneness and coexistence. In terms of Buddha's claim that the myriad phenomena in the universe all go through the cycle of formation, existence, disintegration, and emptiness, and that our mental process experiences the changes of arising, abiding, changing, and extinction. Scientists are yet to come up with an even more complete theory to surpass the Buddha, who had already realized it all 2,600 years ago. No wonder Albert Einstein once said, "If there is any religion that would cope with modern scientific needs, it would be Buddhism." Later facts have indeed proven that the more advanced science becomes, the closer it gets to the truths expounded by the Buddha. Buddha not only spoke in accord with the truth, he also spoke in accord with the different aptitudes of living beings. To rulers, he spoke of the ways to govern and to love one's people. To entrepreneurs, he spoke of the proper means of business to benefit humanity. To the general public and even housewives, Buddha also patiently taught the ways to maintain a family or to deal with people. Buddha actively engaged in the activities of society. Other than teaching and developing the Sangha community, He spent most of his time traveling and delivering people along the shores of the Ganges River even at the age of 80. For this reason, we are still able to discover the remains of those sites that the Buddha had been to. For example, ruins of the Jetavana Grove still speak of the Buddha's teachings through every existing rock and brick whilst conveying the Buddha's selfless and altruistic spirit. Dedication of merits. May kindness, compassion, joy and equanimity pervade all worlds. May we cherish and build affinities to benefit all beings. May Chan, pure land and precepts inspire equality and patience. May our humility and gratitude give rise to great vows.